In Japan, there was a mother who became a cold-blooded killer. She hid an extremely gruesome secret from everybody. When this secret came to light finally, it shocked the entire Japan. The way she almost got away from all her crimes was actually even more disturbing. So today, I am going to tell you guys what this secret was and how she ended up being known as the serial killer mom. This story gets dark, so viewer discretion is advised. Alright, let's dive into this case. Chizuko was born on the 17th of 1951 in Aomori, northern Japan. Growing up, she was a very normal kid, but that was until her father died when she was just 10 years old. After his death, her mother remarried, but just a year later, she got divorced. All this was affecting Chizuko in quite a negative way. She didn't feel like a normal kid anymore. So at the age of 16, she even ran away from her home but returned a year later. Then some time went by, and she met a man after junior high school. She met him through an arranged marriage service in Japan called omiai. So quickly they got married and moved to a remote island in Hokkaido called Okushiri Island. There they had a child, but her husband, however, could not find any steady work, and therefore they struggled a lot financially. All this finally drove Chizuko to attempt suicide. She just could not take it, but she never fully went ahead with her decision. Then at a certain point, she abandoned her husband and child completely. She left them and moved to Kanagawa Prefecture in 1975. Her ex-husband, who stayed with the kid on the island, later died in a tsunami in 1993. But well, Chizuko was not really faced by that. She had a new purpose. In Kanagawa, Chizuko wanted to start over. She wanted to have a better life, so she became a hostess. Hostess clubs in Japan have been popular for a long time. Men, mostly businessmen, come to these places to hang out with beautiful women in these clubs. They pay a lot of money to have hostesses serve them drinks and also sit with them to chat. Oftentimes, most men that come to these clubs have affairs or sexual encounters with the hostesses. Chizuko was beautiful and elegant. She knew exactly how to talk to these men, and with that, she quickly became the most popular hostess in her club. Many men tried to talk to her and pay her to spend time with them, but she gained the attention of this one specific man named Toshio Yamauchi. He was a rich man that owned a famous business in the town. He was married and had 2 kids as well. But after meeting Chizuko, a lot of things changed in his life. He began going to a bar almost every night, spending hundreds of dollars a day on alcohol. Then very quickly he fell in love with Chizuko. So just like that, then he left his wife. He divorced her to marry Chizuko. He then also made her quit the job at the bar. Right after that, Chizuko started working alongside Toshio at the business. By 1978, Toshio's ex-wife, who was pregnant when they got divorced, gave birth to their 3rd son. And exactly around this time, Chizuko, who was also pregnant with Toshio's child, gave birth to their 1st son. They named him Toshihide, and unfortunately, he would be the first victim of Chizuko's crimes. Toshihide was born in 1978, which was the same year Toshio married Chizuko. So finally, Chizuko's attempt to start over in life gave her a new family. Now remember, she had a husband and child back on that island as well. This is simply her second family. The only difference is that now she has financial stability because, well, she married a rich guy and he had a famous business in the town. So both she and Toshio ran their business together while raising Toshihide. But as years went by, things did not remain the same. Toshio became an alcohol addict and Chizuko slowly started losing interest in helping him run the business. So slowly the business began losing customers. Things were not looking too good for the family now. In 1984, Toshihide turned 6 years old, and that is when something terrifying happened to him. He all of a sudden disappeared. One second, the kid was right outside the house by the garage kicking a soccer ball, and then the next, he was gone, nowhere to be found or seen when Chizuko went to fetch him. At least that is what she told the police. Later that day, when the kid went missing, a large-scale search operation was began to find him. Hundreds of volunteers joined, but eventually they couldn't find a single trace of the kid. Chizuko even went on television and talked to the media, crying and begging for someone to find and bring her son home, though she had a very hard to believe theory about Toshihide's disappearance. She claimed that he was abducted by North Koreans, which doesn't really make sense. He was a kid, and why would North Korean operatives of all people abduct a kid? So then she went on and said that they want a ransom and that she doesn't have any money to give them. Police thought this theory was ridiculous, yet they spent a long time trying to find something that might lead to Toshihide's disappearance, but they eventually found nothing and the case went cold. Then one way or another, a year passed. Chizuko's second child with Toshio was born. She was a girl named Rikako. Though she was a very unlucky kid, she was born into a family full of chaos. Toshio kept on drinking away his money, the business was sold off, and finally they even sold their business. Though through these difficult times, somehow they managed to survive. Then a few more years went by, and it was 1997. Rikako was 12 years old. Around this time, Toshio passed away from illness. Now that he was gone, Chizuko and Rikako were all alone with no financial support. For a couple years, they managed to barely survive by borrowing cash from friends and relatives. But they could only do so much to survive. By the early 2000s, they were in serious debt and financial trouble. They hadn't paid rent on their apartment for years. The landlord tried to talk to them and get them to pay the rent, but they did not. Or rather, you could say they just did not have any money to give. So finally, the landlord got them evicted in 2005. The mother and daughter literally became homeless. Having nowhere to go, Toshio's second son from his previous marriage, Minehiro, asked to help. He was living in Hirotsuka City south of Tokyo and let Chizuko and Rikako move in with him. At the time, he just did not know, but this would be the biggest mistake that he would ever make in his life. By 2005, Rikako was 19 years old and in college. Her half-brother Minehiro, who she and Chizuko were living with, was much older. He was 35 years old. However, all three of them managed to make ends meet. Rikako finally got a break from all the chaos she was facing since her birth. She also finally began enjoying her student life thanks to her half-brother. In fact, she even joined the drama club in her school and spent a lot of time even after school performing with her classmates. So that sounds pretty okay, right? And therefore it should be the end of this story. A happy ending, right? Well, not quite. You see, although the trio seemed to be doing good living together, behind closed doors, it was not always rainbows and butterflies. They really had problems. Beside the debt Chizuko was trying to settle, there was too much tension between Rikako, Minehiro, and Chizuko. There might have been a love triangle type of situation in play. Rikako had written in her weblog that implied such an ordeal. I want freedom. I feel like I'm trapped. I feel bad for my mother, but I also feel bad for myself. Everything seems to be going wrong this year, and I'm just fed up. My mother has been acting strangely lately. From the looks of it, it seems that Chizuko was having a little bit of ill feeling towards her own daughter. And that was actually true, because only a few hours after Rikako posting complaining about her relationship with her mother, she suffered a terrible and horrifying fate. It was October 12th of 2005 when Chizuko strangled Rikako to death using strings from her futon. Then her lifeless body was left there lying on the futon for months. The air-conditioned settings were set on dry mode to keep the room free of moisture, so that the decay of her body would be delayed. Although Minehiro quickly found out about this, for some reason he did not go to the police. He in fact helped Chizuko hide the dead body. According to the residents in the town, Minehiro was seen going to the supermarket every week to buy bags of ice, which according to the police was used to place on Rikako's dead body to keep it from decaying. So Chizuko and Minehiro were able to keep this gruesome secret from everybody for way too long. I mean, the body was not really hidden. It was right inside their one-roomed apartment, yet nobody noticed a thing, not even a smell. So Chizuko and Minehiro just continued living in their apartment with Rikako's dead body lying in the futon like nothing happened. From the looks of it, it seems that Minehiro was on board with killing Rikako and hiding the body, but that was not really true. He had no choice but to help Chizuko. How she kept Minehiro on such a tight leash is unknown, but it was believed that he was blackmailed and controlled with something by Rikako. In March of 2006, he decided to kill himself, so he hung himself in the loft area of the apartment. He left a final note on the computer screen which stated, "I wanna die, let me stay with you." Following that, there was another note that included a message to whoever finds his body. "I want you to put me in the same grave as Rikako." It sounds that he just cared about Rikako as a half-sister, or according to the investigation, he was in fact in love with her, and after months of seeing her dead body lying on the ground, he just finally snapped and gave in. He couldn't bear seeing that sight, so tragically he chose to end his life. So about 60 days passed after Minehiro's death, and believe it or not, Chizuko was still living in the apartment with not just one dead body but two now. If it was not for the landlord who notified Minehiro's mother, Chizuko would have kept this secret for much longer. When no one was paying the rent for the apartment, as Minehiro was the one who took care of it before, the landlord let the owner of the apartment know about the situation. The owner of the apartment happened to be Minehiro's mother. So when she and the landlord came to talk to Minehiro about the rent, no one answered the door. It was very strange because Minehiro's mother knew that he would be home at that time, but he was not, or rather it seemed that way. So on May 1st of 2005, with the extra key they had, they opened the door. And that is when they discovered the decomposing bodies of Rikako and Minehiro. At the time, Chizuko was not home. Rikako was lying in the futon and Minehiro was untouched, hanging from the ceiling. They called the police right away. After the initial discovery of the bodies and the suicide note, the police searched the entire apartment and found even more evidence. The most primary evidence was Chizuko's diaries she had written. In one of the entries she had written, "I tried to kill myself after killing my own daughter." So this evidence must have put an end to this atrocity, but what they found next made everything 10 times more terrifying and inhuman. According to the investigation up to this point, they theorized that Chizuko's motive for killing her own daughter was the love triangle situation, but there was more to it. Or rather, you could say Chizuko was used to killing. You see, when police were searching the apartment, they found cardboard boxes, and in them were the decomposed remains of 3 bodies tied in plastic bags. They did a number of examinations and also a DNA analysis. The results found the 3 dead bodies to be Chizuko's own children. The oldest one was Toshihide, Chizuko and Toshio's first son, or the one who disappeared. The other 2 bodies were of infants about 40 weeks old. The father of these 2 infants was unknown, or rather was not mentioned publicly. Also, they could not find the cause of death in any of the 3 dead bodies as they were too decomposed, but it was believed that the remains of the 2 newborns and Toshihide must have been hidden in the boxes for at least 20 years or even longer. Most likely, we are missing a few parts of this story. Decades before Rikako or Toshihide was born, Chizuko had a kid. Well, she actually did, back on that island. And then, she had another one somewhere between 1984 or 1988 as well. Like I said, one of them could be her first son she had with her ex-husband back on Okushiri Island. The other kid, well, there isn't simply enough information even to theorize. But one thing we all know is that both kids never properly got to see the light of the day as they were killed too early by their own mother. Not to mention Toshihide, who was only just 6 years old. But ultimately, on May 3rd of 2005, Chizuko was caught and arrested for the murder of her daughter, Rikako. It did not take her too long to confess everything. She described in detail about how she strangled her own daughter. Also, she confirmed the 3 dead children found in the boxes were hers and she kept them hidden. Though unfortunately, for killing the 3 children, she was not found guilty as the cause of death could not be found. She was found guilty only for abandoning a corpse. As for Minehiro, the autopsies confirmed that his death was a suicide. However, with Rikako's case, Chizuko could not get away easy. So finally, the only crime Chizuko was charged with was the murder of Rikako. Her trial began in August of 2006. Despite her confession and the other strong evidence, she pleaded not guilty to killing her daughter, which made no sense. She literally confessed. Her defense instead tried to claim that Minehiro was obsessed with Rikako, and since she was his half-sister, he felt guilty of being sexually attracted to her. So to end all that, he killed her and then committed suicide. But luckily, the police were able to find CCTV footage of Minehiro's workplace, and so it was found that Minehiro was at work when Rikako might have been killed. Plus, with evidence like Chizuko's written confession in her diary, the case was already decided. Prosecutors demanded that Chizuko must at least get 17 years in prison. Also, the claim of pinning the murder of Rikako on Minehiro was completely invalid as he was dead and could not refute the claims. So, in July of 2006, the Yokohama District Court sentenced Chizuko Okamoto to 12 years in prison for the murder of her daughter, Rikako. Judge Takashi Okima said there was no reason for him to kill Rikako. This is a cold-blooded crime in which the accused showed no loving feeling for the daughter. Chizuko later appealed the decision, but in October of 2005, the Tokyo High Court agreed with the first judge and upheld her sentence of 12 years. By the time Chizuko received the sentence, she was 57 years old. We have no information about when she was released or what she is doing now. If she served her full 12 years, she must have gotten out in 2019. So now being in her 70s, where she is living is unknown, or maybe she is dead. No one knows. However, let's hope her time in prison changed her and made her realize all the evil and despicable things she did to her own family. Some believe she became such an evil human being because of factors such as financial stress, dysfunctional family history, and even possible mental illness, while others think that she was innately that way and she had an urge to kill. It was just her true colors or her true nature. Well, whatever it was, none of that can justify her unforgivable actions, which is what most people feel about this disturbing and tragic story.